Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day to everyone who's watching, especially to the examiner, to the audience, and also to my supervisor. Today, I'm going to present my final year project 1, which is entitled Improve Feature Selection for Cancer Classification Using Multi-omics Cancer Benchmark. So my name is Tunku Sharifah Ainun Nabila, binti Tunku Azhar. I am from 3 SCSB with metric ID A17CS0300. My supervisor is Dr. Haslina binti Hashim. So I'm going to present by chapters. So this is the overview by chapters. The first one I will explain about introduction, literature overview, research methodology, research design and implementation, and also conclusion. So for the first chapter, which is introduction. So basically, cancer growth is the subsequent driving reason for death, all inclusive, and is liable for an expected 9.6 million deaths in 2018. Internationally, around 1 out of 6 deaths is because of the disease. Roughly, 70% of deaths from the disease happen in low and mid-payer nations. Multi-omics has been increasingly recognized in science field that the answer to a research question cannot be answered by only one form of omics. The use of multi-omics approach in treating cancer is quite extensive in this field, which is to why multi-omics approach is quite playing a role for cancer classification. So as for the problem background, the selection of information from massive data could be burdensome to most doctors, which make them having difficulties in judging suitable treatments and also prescriptions for the liver cancer patients. The problem that can be analyzed is that many computational methods have been identified for cancer classification. However, most of them only employing gene expression data to generate the model, which means there is less proper method to classify the cancer with suitable feature selection. So, these are my research aim, objectives, and also scopes. For the aim for this research is to improve feature selection for cancer classification. Objectives: to apply an algorithm of feature selection for cancer classification. Next one is to identify feature of multi-omics using feature selection. And last one is to evaluate the performance of feature selection towards cancer classification. The scopes are: the dataset used for this research is from SCGT ROM Shamir's lab. This is the link for the dataset. The format for this dataset is seen as numerical dataset. This research will mainly use feature selection to filter the dataset. The dataset will be pre-processed by using Python programming language. So the next one is chapter 2, which is literature review. So the domain and problem. So literally my domain is liver cancer. These are the methods that I'll be explained in this literature review. So the problem for prediction liver cancer dataset will be solved by using feature selection for cancer classification. So there are filter, wrapper, embedded, and for classification it will be explained SVM and also random forest in the thesis. So methods used to solve the problem regardless of domain. So these are the feature selection comparison. We have here filter method, wrapper method, and also embedded method. So the advantages for filter method is much faster than other method as it does not involve training the models. And the disadvantage is filter method does not remove multicollinearity, hence the multicollinearity of features must be dealt first before training models for the data. For the wrapper method, the advantage is problem is reduced to a search problem, while for the disadvantage is the methods are usually computationally expensive. For embedded method, the advantage is it has inbuilt penalization function to reduce overfitting, while for the disadvantage, it might not work with any other classifier since that it is classifier dependent selection. So the example for filter is are these. You can look out for it. For method used specifically in domain of interest, so I particularly collect some of the research theses, and these are the authors. So as for the feature selection method that they use, usually they will use filter in their experiment. So for the first author, the chosen feature selection method is filter combined with the classification SVM. As for the second author, they use hybrid, which is filter and also wrapper. And as for the classification, they use SVM, also K nearest neighbor. The third author used filter as well, and the classification also SVM and also KNN to be exact. And the last author, they use filter for their feature selection method combined with classification method SVM. So these are the advantages and disadvantages that can be seen in the thesis. So as for the evaluation of method, these are the methods that I'll be using in my experiment later. So the process feature selection. The chosen method is filter method, and to be exact, particle swarm optimization. So what are the reasons? The reason is filter method is the most wide commonly, of course, used, whereby it serves fast method in feature selection. It is also scalable with large dataset, which makes it the most suitable feature selection to be used in this study. So basically, my dataset is quite large because it comprises of multi-omics dataset. It has 3 omics in it, which will be pre-processed in Python instead of Weka software. As for the classification, we use SVM. As mentioned in the SVM section earlier, this is for the thesis. SVM works well with a clear separation margin and is effective in high dimensional spaces, whereby it is also efficient in memory. Besides, it also offers high precision. Chapter 3, we have here research methodology. As for the research framework, um, I particularly did this framework which comprises phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 and phase 4. I'll be explaining it later. As for the phase 1 initial study, which is to identify the problem for the research, aim to solve the problem of classifying cancer by using improved feature selection. The purpose of the research is to classify the cancer, is to do cancer classification by using suitable feature selection method, whereby nowadays there is less proper method to classify the cancer by using any suitable feature selection. Through the insight understanding of the aim, objective and problem background, this research can be conducted within the scopes, and research will be importantly reduce the mistakes. The next phase is data gathering and literature review, which is important in aiding the research to be more resourceful. The dataset is collected from SCGT Ron Shami's lab, whereby it enlightens more for liver cancer. There are 4 different files in the dataset, which are gene expression, short for EXP, methyl, which is DNA methylation, Myrna, which is microRNA, and also survival patient dataset. These files are all from the liver cancer dataset, which are in multi-omics manner. So basically, I have a dataset which comprises gene expression, DNA methylation, and also microRNA, which will be merged later to be in multi-omics manner. So the research papers are mainly from Science Direct, Google Scholar, and Springer authorized websites. As for the phase 3 data preparation, feature selection, classification, and performance measure. So for the data preparation, I'll be using to pre-process, which is rescaling data, standardization, normalization, and also binarization. I also did some data analysis and also data visualization for the pre-processing data. As for the feature selection, I'll be using particle swarm optimization. And for the classification, support vector machine. And also for the performance measure is confusion matrix, and to be exact, accuracy. And the last phase is phase 4, which is documentation and report writing. Phase 4 is where all the analysis, result, and discussion will be recorded in your report writing and documentation. Documentation is an important feature for research, whereby it needs to keep update about the research workflow and progress along with the result of the study. The future works will also be proposed in this section for future reference and purpose. So these are the hardware and software requirements for my research. The next one is chapter 4, which is research design and implementation. So this is the research workflow, which is start. And next one is the liver cancer multi-omics data set, along with data processing, and then feature selection algorithm, and lastly SVM classifier. So as for the data pre-processing, as mentioned earlier, I did some data rescaling, data standardization, data normalization, and also data binarization by using Python programming language. So these are the classes that I use for the data preprocessing. As for the proposed solution, I'll be using particle swarm optimization and also support vector machine. So why PSO? Based on previous research, they use PSO SVM as their main method. PSO has an intrinsic guidance approach which lets the solution in PSO to get useful data from the improved solutions and thus helping them develop their individual solutions. It gives a faster convergence rate for the solutions in PSO. So as for the classification method, so why SVM? SVM is a very good classifier to be trained on PSO data because SVM has better classification accuracy and also precision. And the last chapter, chapter 5, is conclusion. As for introduction, to sum up the entire final year project 1, this research is very interesting to be analyzed as it is one of good contribution towards medical industry. Besides that, this research is meant to help better understanding towards cancer classification, especially about the feature selection that is used for the study. Through this research, I've learned that data preprocessing is very important for the data set to be clean from missing or null values, noise, etc. Other than that, I also learned that feature selection is very useful in order to reduce the redundant and to filter unnecessary data of the dataset, resulting in good analysis. Achievements of projects. For chapter 1, able to understand the problem background of the project, which is solving the problems arise from less proper method of handling the data set. Able to construct research fundamental, which are aim, objective, scopes, contribution, and many more. Chapter 2, able to do research on domain of interest thoroughly. Literature review is achieved by completing the overall domain findings, which comprises of domain and problem, method used in domain of interest, method used to solve the problem regardless of domain, and also evaluation of method. For chapter 3, research methodology is achieved by completing the details in workflow theoretically that should be done from the data preparation for the method used for the domain, which are feature selection and classification. And chapter 4, research findings are achieved by completing the data preprocessing part by using Python programming language. Methods are also explained theoretically in the thesis. As for the PSM2 plan and future works, for PSM2, experiments will be done in terms of using the Python coding, programming language, and all of the software and hardware were mentioned before. Feature selection, which is PSO, will be implemented to investigate the accuracy of the method, and classification will be also implemented as well. Overall, this research required the students to go thoroughly by using computational tools in order to acquire the result. In the future, better works can be done in terms of acquiring good dataset, data mining, and more. The dataset should be cleaned from missing or null values so that the accuracy can be improved. So I think that's all from me. Thank you.